can I bring up that I know we had talked about it, or Daisy and I had talked about it off you know, during the week, but um, there was this episode of Glenn Greenwald's um, System Update in which he addressed this. Um, there was this criticism of uh, the Hill, the Rising, by Nathan Robinson from Current Affairs, and Glenn Greenwald did this long show. I mean, normally it's like an hour and a half, and he did an introduction where he talked about the issues, but then he had on Nathan Robinson to talk about why he wrote this. And specifically, it was a review of the book, A Populist Guide to 2020 by uh, Crystal Ball and Sagar and Jetty. And
Right.
then he had Crystal Ball on kind of as a response. And it was pretty obvious that Glenn Greenwald sympathized more with Crystal Ball's point of view. And I don't agree with either of them really. I mean, I guess I'm more sympathetic to Crystal Ball, but I also see the limitations to what she is espousing. But in any case, I thought it was interesting because not so much for the content of the debate, but I have a lot of friends, who are my age, who like want Biden no matter what. I mean, they just think they got to get rid of Trump. We got to get Biden in there, and that's kind of what this guy Nathan Robinson was calling for. That basically we should not even be talking to people on the right. So by extension, Sagar should not be on the show, should not be on the Rising, because Crystal Ball should not be giving time to somebody who's a so-called right populist. And he grouped Sagar with people like Mussolini, Bolsonaro in Brazil. He considered, right populists, and he was calling for, we have to have somebody we have to go to the left. And the point of view of Crystal, I think, is that and Sagar, for that matter, is that the issue is really not so much left versus right as populism versus elites versus duopoly versus the war machine, in which both parties kind of work together, and that the populism you see on the right in this country in terms of support for Trump is not the same. There are similarities, but it's not the same as the populism you saw in fascist Italy or Germany or other places. So I thought that was interesting because it's a way. How do you have that debate with people who say Biden, we have to get rid of Trump, support Biden no matter what? And these are the same people that if I criticize anything about Biden, they're all over me for like, why are you attacking our candidate? And I think it's important to be able to, rather than just get into a slugfest with these people, that kind of come up with a rational argument that, okay, Trump is really bad. I mean, he's has fascist overtones. He's a racist. Biden would be better in that respect, but Biden's really not going to change anything. How do we have that discussion, and how do we move beyond just like Democrat versus Republican? Like Democrats are left and Republicans are right. I think that's the way a lot of older people still see it. How do you move beyond that? And I thought that's why this, to me, was very interesting that issue is not really being addressed. And I frankly, I'm kind of at a loss how to respond to sometimes to people who are like that, who say, we should support Biden and we should not attack Biden at all because that will decrease his chances of winning against Trump.
Well, it's really hard to deal with people that want to shut down conversation, right? I mean, you've got that's been the major problem. At least since 2016, coming out of 2016, where there was obviously fixing of the primary, Pelosi was basically saying everything's great. The people don't want any change. They think we're going perfect, right? And I think identity politics is another way to shut down any conversation, right? and this, I don't know, on media, that a lot of people would use this whataboutism term. Like if somebody talks about one thing, if you were to, if they were to talk about Biden, if you were to talk about Trump, you're not allowed to do that. That's whataboutism, and it's like, wait a minute, comparison is a basic way we make value judgments. Of course that's a valid thing. So I have no answer to how you deal with people who are looking to shut down conversation. I think it's a way for elites or people that just simply want to maintain power.
Well, I mean, obviously these things are a distraction, like the whole, like the identity politics. I mean,
right.
Again, it's like, it's important, of course, it's important for disenfranchised groups, for ignored groups to be recognized, and Black Lives Matter. I support, their aspirations, but the question is, there are other issues like the militarism, the wars. That's the underlying,
those are the things you're not allowed. Those are things you're not allowed to talk about. And like I said, right. I can't tell you how many really intelligent, wonderful friends I have that if you were to bring up something like, but Trump hasn't gotten us into any additional wars. The worst thing he's done on militarily is continue Obama's wars in Yemen, slaughtering children or whatever like that, and they just roll their eyes, and there's no conversation there to be had, because it's so offensive to them that you would criticize something that I find to be incredibly horrible, that we're supposed to be the good guys and we're part of this destruction of humanity across the globe,
Right.
See, I think the issue comes with the fact that we can't have conversations with each other anymore because we just see each other as labels rather than people. When you think of some of your friends that you're having, that they have certain ideology or whatever, that is how you label them. Even when it comes down to the races, the whole identity politics thing, yes, that is at the core done on purpose so that we can't actually bring about any sort of change, because we're too busy attacking each other based on some sort of arbitrary type of division amongst us that really shouldn't exist, right? And we can't have just relative conversations. And even Jim, how just the fact that you can't, we can walk and chew gum at the same time, right? So you can say that you don't support Trump and then also acknowledge the fact that he may have done some things okay. I'm not even going to say right. I'm going to say okay.
Right.
But unfortunately, some people, for them, it's such a dichotomy. Like you can only have one or the other. It's either like if you say anything positive about Trump, oh, you're a Trumper. Again, with the labels.
Exactly.
Well, if I say anything negative, like I was talking to a friend, who's active in the Democratic Party, and I said, Biden, doesn't look that good these days. Like he just seems like he's in some kind of decline. And she looked at me like, what? I said, well, he seems like he can't put a couple sentences together, and he's just like not as coherent as he used to be. And she's like, are you a Trump supporter? So like the immediate jump was from, if you're criticizing Biden, you must be a Trump supporter. So like I'm not trying to put any walls up. I'm trying to keep an open conversation going. And all I do is kind of almost innocuously suggest that Biden isn't as sharp as he could be, that he's a weak candidate. If the Democrats want to win, they need to have somebody, or they need Biden to improve or whatever. They need somebody stronger. And that is heresy. And I'm a Trump supporter because I'm not standing behind, our man. And how do you, I'm trying to keep an open dialogue going, but, with somebody, that's the way some people see it, that if you are at all critical of Biden, then you are a Trump supporter. So it's black and white.
And I think this is accelerated under Trump, but I think to some extent it's always existed. If you were to make favorable comparisons on one subject out of 100 for a Republican versus a Democrat before, with Bush or whoever, I think I felt I would be subject to the same thing.
But Trump's he's not really a Republican. I mean, he is, it's kind of, he's a lifelong Democrat, and now he's going against the war machine. at least as far as Afghanistan is concerned. And that really, like, that pisses off the national security, the neocons. But like, still my friend is going to say, well, Trump is bad because of, he's racist and all these things, but they're not talking about the war issues.
And that's because the people in power have succeeded in distracting us with relatively little concerns, and just taking everyone just kind of considers there's a permanent state of war and there's nothing they can do about it. It's too complicated to think about.
Right.
Right. And you also have to remember that you have this, your ideology, right? Because of what you have consumed, the information that you have consumed, and how, you arrived at it whenever you did, but not everybody arrives at the same level at the same time, and
Right.
all we can do is just continue to put this message out, and hopefully people will listen to it, and then they will see, hopefully eventually. And if they don't, well, I mean, then they don't. But
right.
all we can, like, that's all you can do. I oftentimes I think to myself that a lot of people, they try to go around convincing other people of how they should look at things or whatever it may be. And I think that we have to let that go, because you think you're right and that other person thinks that they're right. And who's to say that you actually are correct? You know what I'm saying? And I'm not in the business of trying to convince anybody, or make or change anybody's mind about things. If that happens, then awesome.
Well, wait a second.
But I don't go out of my way to do that.
You worked on the Tulsi campaign, weren't you? Weren't you trying to get people to vote for Tulsi? I mean, isn't that changing?
All I was doing was that I was putting out her information. I mean, she sold herself. I didn't need to try to sell her to people. I didn't need to try to convince people that she was the person. No, she did that all on her own. All I did was help spread that message to the people that were willing to listen to it. And a lot of them, or a good chunk of them, maybe converted. And the other chunk of them, they just didn't feel that. I do think that, because Tulsi was the type of person that if you listen to her, if you actually listen to her, then you got it,
right.
For a lot of people, that was the sense that they got. But unfortunately, other things were priorities for a lot of people, especially like in New Hampshire. She did have a lot of support in New Hampshire, but people felt that, it's too dangerous with Trump and she really didn't have a chance, and all, there were all these other narratives that were being spun around it. And I mean, I can't blame, whoever it is that didn't vote for her, that, whatever media they consumed that changed their mind about things,
Right. But I also think it's strong.
All you can do is you can try and give them the idea that there is other media and that they need to consider that CNN, MSNBC, and Fox, are often lying to them.
I mean, I think you come up with your own perspective, your own paradigm, over years. And sometimes it changes radically. Sometimes you have like a paradigm shift, where all of a sudden, like you see things differently than you did before. So I think things happen. I think you have to have some confidence in your belief system with an openness to be willing to change it. And that's kind of like the scientific approach. You believe in evolution, or you believe in gravity until something else comes along to prove you otherwise. But that's your working hypothesis that you base your actions on. And I think a strong leader does have a certain point of view that they try to bring others into that point of view. So I think like a political candidate like Tulsi, or whether it's, I mean, Biden is really not a good example, but or Trump, whatever. But I think some candidates have a strong ideological foundation, and they work to bring others into that fold. And they're not always successful, but a good leader is able to, is a good listener, and as well as a good convincer of others to see things their way, and being open to change, of course, in their own perspective at the same time. So I think it's a very complicated dynamic. And I just read that thing. Did you read the thing by Caitlin Johnstone on Medium.com about consciousness changing that she wrote maybe a week or so ago? It was really, really good, because she talks about that people have these little tapes playing in their head all the time, and they see things. They have to convince other people that this is the truth or whatever, and they're pushing it on other people. And she goes as far as to say the whole concept of individual separation is a fallacy. I mean, this is our Western point of view. We've been brought up to think that we're individual, atomistic individuals, and I mean, it's the whole basis for capitalism, right? And that she says that we have to move beyond that concept of separation from others. That really we're connected, and this is supported by the quantum physics and everything. But I thought it was really interesting for someone who's a comments on the political scene to bring in this kind of ethereal, almost spiritual perspective on things.
Right, she's a outstanding writer.